Hi everyone, it's Some Type of Artist, and I'm joined again by my friend Chris today. And
Hello.
we are going. This is the first episode in a kind of side project I wanted to try out, where we revisit a bunch of different anime that we grew up with when we were teenagers and in our college years, and come back to it now after a particularly long time and see how we feel about it. Um, and the first show we wanted to see together was a show called Air Gear that was released in the mid 2000s, and it was around the same time that we both started watching it too. It's set in a world where there's like a big craze over these rollerblades that have motors in them, and people have created a kind of culture and I don't want to go just straight up call it gang wars, but there is like some kind of team based rivalry
It's
gang set
it's
up
it
in this world. And the main character, Icky, is just
it's
getting into
it's a
it's what?
oh I was gonna say it is a sports anime combined with like a shonen battle anime
Yeah, there's like a lot of
because
different like little things from like tournament arcs and action anime and shonen anime kind of all rolled up into this one, and it's about the main character Icky. He's just getting into these these rollerblade. They're called
called
air. They're
ATs.
called air treks, and they call them ATs for short. And he's getting into this culture and this world about it, and he's trying to put together the best possible team um, to be, I guess, better than everyone else, more or less.
Sort of.
It's
It's
a
kind of where it turns out to be, but like it's more or less like it's weird because the intro of the show is a little bit like odd because I guess like a brief synopsis is like there's like these ATs, like the main character Icky knows about them. He's very interested in them, yet he has not been riding them. But everybody that lives in his house has been riding them like forever,
yeah. That was
and
one of the things
somehow he's not been riding them.
that was one of the things that confused me because it starts off with him watching that like introductory video to ATs. So I thought he was just kind of getting into it or finding out about them. But it was something I was wondering about because everybody in his house is like really really good at
Very
it, but
involved.
they're all keeping it a secret too. I don't know that. I'll get more into that stuff in a little bit, but that's the basic setup for Air Gear. There's a lot of
Yeah,
comedy in it. There's some melodrama mixed in there. There's, like I said, it pulls from there's nothing like a tournament arc, but it has a lot of tournament arc esque qualities to it that kind of make it enjoying to watch all the different kinds of battles they have with their fancy rollerblades. I don't know if I would call it
yeah.
straight up sports anime, but it's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you read like the description of it, I usually see it classified as like a sports anime,
Oh, okay
and
then.
like it's very weird that it's considered that, but it does make sense because they are in different types of competitions with their ATs. Not every competition is the same. Certain ones have different rules depending on what class they are in this like weird system. And to be perfectly honest, you never rode like BMX bikes when you were younger, right?
No.
Okay, well, if you rode BMX bikes in New Jersey, in like the late '90s, there actually was rankings, and you could be like officially ranked depending on which tracks you went to. And me and my friends were doing it for a long time, so it kind of seemed familiar to me with this like weird ranking system.
Who was ranking them?
I don't remember anything about it, but there was like this like,
Like, did you have to be part of a team,
regional.
or this was just you hanging out with your friends and and there was like a rank.
No, you went to these tracks and you would like sign up
Oh, okay.
and you would put your money you I think you had to pay a little bit of money and they would keep track of how many races you won or what place you placed in the races, and depending on what place or how good you did, you would qualify for bigger races.
Oh,
None of my friends except one actually got really into it.
so,
But he did eventually qualify for like a different race that he actually had to like travel to like some different tracks.
so what you're
Most of
saying,
the kids
what you're saying is
just
they didn't
raced that one
have
track.
they didn't have like a little SD card they plugged into your BMX bike that recorded all of your data like in Air Gear.
No, not maybe they have that now, but this was in the mid 90s, like right around the N64 days, like 95, 96, 97.
Right. Okay. But
So you probably have passed the place a million times. There was a place called Beacon's Bikes in Howell, New Jersey that had one of these tracks behind it.
uh well, the name doesn't sound familiar, but maybe I passed it. Was it on 9?
It's no longer called Beacon's Bikes.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is on 9, like
Okay.
everything.
Well, then yeah, obviously I passed it at some point. But anyway, so
Yeah.
how did you get into Air Gear?
Okay, like the way I got into air gear is kind of weird because I really had no prior knowledge of what air gear even was, except for it was made by the person that made Tenjo Tenge, which was an anime I watched. But this was way before I read the manga for Tenjo Tenge, and I always liked skateboarding and inline skates and stuff. And I saw, oh, there's like a rollerblading manga. That's really cool. However, it took me a while to finally break into it, just because, you know, this is an adult manga in some ways, and it was wrapped up in plastic. And I was like, okay, like
Was it
usually when
really?
these mangas are wrapped in plastic, that means like one of two things: either it is extremely violent, or it is possibly softcore porn. This is kind of a little bit of both categories at some points,
I guess
but
that's another
not
thing we should
really.
have mentioned about Air Gear. It does have a bunch of lewd moments in them. I mean, a lot of anime
I
does,
would say
but they do show
it's
like bare.
pervy.
They do show some bare tits in the anime.
Yes,
That being said, it wasn't
it is
nearly
very
as lewd as I remembered it being. But go ahead.
yeah. So anyway, like there was this show, and like the art looked cool. I was curious about the manga, but was hesitating on it just because I'm like, oh, it's like wrapped in plastic. I don't know what this is actually gonna be. Like, is this gonna be something I buy that like I'm immediately ashamed of? But anyway, so anyway, I found out there was an anime for it, and I was like, oh, cool, there's an anime. Maybe I'll check out the anime first. And I saw the intro for the show, and I was like, okay, this looks really
Oh my
cool.
god, the
And
intro is so good. Just to jump the
yeah,
gun a little bit, Air Gear has definitely has one of my favorite intros from any anime I've seen.
yeah. So anyway, saw the intro on like YouTube or something. I was like, okay, this looks cool. I was like, is this available in the United States? And by the time I was finally able to like buy it, the whole series was out, like in a DVD set. It literally just came out, like the complete series in a DVD set. Because I do remember when they were selling them individually, and like I was thinking about buying them individually, but then I remembered, this was right around the time where ADV Films was sort of going out of business, and I was collecting another ADV Films anime called Pumpkin Scissors that never actually released its last DVD. So I was super hesitant about like buying something like this again, and I was like, okay, maybe they'll have a complete series. And then the complete series came out. I watched it and I was like, holy crap, this is so cool. Why isn't anybody talking about this show? And pretty much systematically showed like everybody I could possibly show it to. Like I showed, Gabe, of course. I showed a lot of my other friends. I showed the anime club in my college. Like everybody I've showed it to was like, this show is really cool. Like, how does nobody know about this show? And it's kind of from there I got into the manga. The manga is different than the anime, at least at the beginning, but then it kind of lines up with the anime. But yeah, so that's what started me into Air Gear, and like it's one of my like favorite anime slash mangas. It's right up there with like Bleach for me as like one of my favorites, for sure.
Yeah, so I remember you introducing it to me. I'm not really sure about when exactly it was. It must have been like early 2009, I think,
Yeah.
cuz or late 2008. I know it was right after I finished up community college and I had that kind of break between transferring schools. Cuz that's one of the biggest things I remembered about Air Gear. Like not the show particularly itself, but just a lot of the stuff I guess inspired by Air Gear that we went to did afterwards. Like we started trying out rollerblading for a while, and I gave up pretty quickly because I felt super nervous doing it. But you and our friend Matt did it for a pretty long time afterwards. But
Yeah, and
I just
I did it
remember.
even longer after Matt too.
Oh, I thought Matt did it the most.
No, I did it the
Oh,
most.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Um,
I even rollerbladed before Air Gear, but I didn't have a pair of rollerblades at the time until I saw Air Gear and was like, I gotta get rollerblades again. So
yeah, I had never. I hadn't rollerbladed since I was a little kid. I was kind of worried about it too because I didn't know if it was like a little kid activity to do or a 90s activity thing to do because I never see anybody rollerblading like ever, but
yeah,
that might just be because of where we live too. But
true.
either way, I was too nervous. I think I also bought like the wrong size rollerblades as well because I didn't have a job at the time, so I was trying not to spend a whole lot of money. So I found
Mm.
this pair that sort of fit okay at a clearance price. I don't know. I just remember being really uncomfortable because the road was not smooth and I felt like I was gonna fall like every time I made any kind of motion.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
that's kind of the thing with Air Gear for me. It was uh, something I really didn't remember much about before coming back into it because I probably haven't seen this show since like 2010 or so. But you have the soundtrack for it, and you let me borrow it and make a copy for myself. And around this time every year, I always kind of get nostalgic for Air Gear. And for the past few years, I've been listening to the soundtrack more, and that's kind of like how this whole project came to be. I was listening to some anime soundtracks that I used to listen to a lot that I haven't listened to in a really long time, and Air Gear was one of them. And I'm like, I should really just watch Air Gear again. I think I will. And then I said, you know what? I just want to watch all the anime again because I haven't seen them in so long. Um, because we both used to be really big fans of anime, but I kind of tailored off big time in 2010 and just kind of stepped away from it entirely. Like everything, it's a story for another time, but I went from loving it to just hating everything about it. And I guess over the past 5 years or so, I've been slowly just trying to get myself back into it a little bit again. And I think
Mm.
I'm kind of at like a more comfortable point with myself where I can just revisit all these shows and just kind of see what I liked about them at the time and if they still really hold up for me now. And I guess that's kind of like one of the purposes of this project because I don't know, like Air Gear in particular, I never really see much discourse about. I have like a few anime sources on YouTube and Twitter that I find out information about or I hear things about. So it just comes up in conversation for me a lot. But I wouldn't say I go out and intentionally look for a bunch of anime related information or see what people are saying. So I don't know. Air Gear could have like a massive cult following for all I know, but it's something that
It
you and me
doesn't, though.
it's something that you and me, I feel like that's the extent of who I've ever heard knew about Air Gear.
Yeah, it is a show that, it had enough people, I think, in Japan that liked it just because it did last 37 volumes of manga. But, like, the anime, is only a 26 episode anime with, like, I think there's 3 OVAs that have never been dubbed in English.
Yeah,
But I know,
I kind of stumbled across that because I had a few questions and I tried looking up the Air Gear wiki to see if I could find anything, and I saw these like really good looking screenshots and I'm like, this isn't from the show I'm watching now. Was there another Air Gear show?
no.
And it's like, oh, there's a
Yeah,
bunch of
there's the
OVAs.
OVA.
Did Chris ever have the OVAs or watch the OVAs? I gotta ask him, and then I forgot about it entirely until right now.
Yeah, it's funny because going back to watching Air Gear too, I think the show is really good. A lot of the characters are like really fun and like hilarious. It definitely, like, to take a phrase that has been getting a lot of play on the internet. It's a show that definitely subverts your expectations because at times the show goes like so dramatic and corny that you're like, what is happening? But then it immediately gives itself a reality check with like comedy.
Yeah, it kind of had a structure that, well, it starts off with a lot more comedic moments and a lot more like typical shonen moments. Like, Ikki wants to
Yeah.
be better at his ATs. He wants to get stronger. He wants to get faster. It's kind of his own journey to just being the best, and he's really excited about it and stuff like that. And there's like a lot of funny moments that go all around for a lot of the first half, and then the second half kind of starts getting more serious to the point where I'd call it melodramatic, and it's there that I
It
kind of
definitely is.
like started losing some interest.
Yeah.
Like it goes from Ikki trying to learn about how to use ATs and doing some little battles here and there. Like each episode has its own kind of battle or story to tell, and there's a whole bunch of comedy mixed in with it. And then we're at the halfway point of the show, and this is something I was kind of really confused about too, because he lives with these groups of girls that I'm not sure why he lives there, to be honest. It was one of the questions I had for you, but he lives with 4 sisters. He's not related to them. He just kind of lives there, and most of them are all like, yeah, okay, well, if you want to do ATs, you gotta, do it yourself. You just can't use ours, because he found out that they, are a big deal in the AT world. And the one sister who's like his age and is his friend, Ringo, she's like super stoked that he's getting into this world with her, and it's just I don't know. I thought it was just like a joy to just like watch her face light up because Ikki, this guy that she secretly but not so secretly really likes, is finally getting into something that she's into, and that's cool and everything. And then halfway into the series, it's like their oldest sister comes back home from traveling somewhere, and it's like, we can't tell her that Ikki's doing ATs. It's like, okay,
Well,
why?
his older sister is a professional wrestler,
Yeah, she was doing
and she was on tour.
yeah, but she wants that to be kept a secret from the family, or I don't know. I remember
Which is weird because it's not a secret in the manga.
yeah,
She like literally shows up like in her wrestling gear and like beats up everybody in the house because manga is like different.
yeah, but either way, like she has a huge problem with Iggy making ATs or like playing around or getting into them, and it just kind of like everyone else in the house knew she was going to have such a huge problem with it, and I couldn't help but think, why were all of these other sisters encouraging Ikki to ride ATs and get involved in the parts wars and stuff when they knew the oldest one in charge didn't want that for him at all. And that started this
Yeah.
big kind of, backstory into that particular sister that I thought lasted a little too long. And it mostly just ends up with Icky being like, I don't care. I'm just gonna do what I want anyway.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, not to get ahead, but like, it's weird because the beginning of the show, he steals the ATs from his sisters. He starts riding them around. He's carrying around the emblem for his sister's team, which is the Sleeping Forest, which is like the team to beat. They're the highest ranked team. They're the ones above all. Like, everybody wants a piece of the Sleeping Forest.
Yeah, but then the
And
Sleeping Forest is also supposed to be like a legend too, so I was a little confused if people are realistically trying to beat them or if they're trying to be as good as the stories say they are about them. I don't know.
yeah, it's a little vague, especially in the anime, because I mean, more or less, like, the Sleeping Forest functions as like a almost like a barrier for like other teams trying to get to the top, like, unless they're like truly worthy. And it goes into this like whole like weird mythology and air gear with these motorized rollerblades and stuff. The show definitely shines a lot when it's just like Icky and his friends like doing this sport, having these like, I guess the best way to like phrase them is like scrimmages against like other teams.
Yeah.
My favorite part of like the anime is just when, after Icky's been riding the ATs for a little bit, but he's been using the sisters emblem, and they're like, no, you can't use the emblem, and he's just like, that's okay, I'm gonna like make my own team. And the people like he ends up like making a team with are like one of them is like this like fat kid named Fatty
I
Bucha,
love
who
Bucha. I love
whose
Bucha so much.
anatomy does not make sense for a 13-year-old or any person.
Oh man, I lost it when they. So the kind of over the top stuff I'm talking about is really shines with Bucha because he appears to be an insanely tall and overweight kid. But then,
Yeah.
how did the show describe it? He's not actually fat. He just
He has like
redistributes 90% of his blood from his stomach up to his chest so he can become like super ripped. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, why not? It's a show about motorized rollerblading.
yeah, like he's fat because like all the blood in his body like pools in his stomach, and then like he like sucks it all into his muscles and becomes like more or less like the Incredible Hulk.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
and
it's
could do like ridiculous stuff.
but it's like whatever. It's a funny visual. It's just it's whatever. It's over the top fun, and that's what I love about Air Gear when it does stuff like that. The melodrama stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Air Gear can't have serious parts to a story, but like I don't know. Things kind of just really start to escalate pretty quickly after the halfway mark. They kind of taper back down again for the last few episodes, which I was glad about. But there's like this part in like the third quarter of the series that just kind of feels like,
It's weird. It is a very like it's a funny show, but it does have its like drama and, like I said, weird mythology, because like the whole deal with like Icky is like,
yeah. Let's talk about the Trophaeum now that we brought it up.
So like the whole deal with Icky in general is like, for whatever reason, he has this like affinity for like the sky. And like they always say like the sky loves him, and he can like jump super high, and he's just loved by the sky. And in fact, he can see this thing in the first episode called like the Winged Road, which is almost like this like legendary thing where like he can see the path in the wind, and can like fly wearing rollerblades. And it's a huge deal that like he could see this like winged road that like all these other riders are making like a big deal about it to like a ridiculous extent. In fact, early on in the show, Icky ends up racing Fatty Bucha, who has a team called the Yao. And because Icky is able to see like the winged road, like all these other, storm riders, which are what AT riders are called in the show up to this like match, including like this one storm rider named Spitfire, who is considered a king. And as the show goes on, you find out like there's this like thing called the Trophaeum, and that's where all these teams are trying to climb the Trophaeum and become one of these like 8 kings on top of the Trophaeum, who you also find out have special rollerblades that have magic powers. I mean, magic powers, but like they are
not literally
but,
magic
like,
powers,
let's
but
face them,
they got
they're magic.
Yeah, they got special wheels called regalia that are as ridiculous as anything else in air gear.
Yeah, and
like
I think
Spitfires
regalia
has fire,
is like a royalty term for like a crown or something. But
yeah,
and anyway, once that stuff gets like thrown in the mix, it kind of like changes from like being like this is like a sports anime to being like, oh, this is like a like Shonen Jump like battle anime actually.
Yeah, that's why, because I looked at it as more of a shonen show than a sports anime. Because sports anime, at least from my brief experience, seem kind of more grounded than what air gear is.
Yeah, and air gear doesn't start off being grounded. I mean, it's already like, in some ways, motorized like rollerblades is kind of a believable technology that we're kind of getting closer and closer to, especially with like stuff like one wheel and things like that. But like, it's interesting, but there's like all these different race types depending on your class. The one, I think the first one we see that's like actually like a regular like parts war and not like a parts war with special conditions because of the sleeping forest emblem is when he races Bucha, and it's like hurdles, so like they're going like up
it's the Resaboa dogs,
these, like,
isn't it?
buildings.
It's the Resaboa dogs before Bucha, isn't it?
Oh, maybe, but he still. Oh, right, he makes his own.
I just
like,
know that because I love
briefly.
I love the leader of the Resaboa dogs. I usually hate like Elvis, tropes like that, but I don't know. There was something about the leader of the Resaboa dogs and his really stupid pompadour and the way he talked and the way he treated his
that
team.
Guy, Inuyama.
Yeah, I really liked him a lot.
Right. So the first one they do is like it is Dash, and it's just pretty much a race, and it's ridiculous because these guys are wearing dog helmets, and the one guy like literally is like strong enough to like bash his head against like a water tower, and it like breaks apart.
His pompadour on top of that, his pompadour is the one he's bashing stuff with, not his actual.
Well,
head.
he has the pompadour inside like the helmet. You know, the helmet makes like the dog head.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of when he's disciplining his teammates by doing that little head bit. Well, I don't know. He's still
where he, like, smacks people in the head.
He might still be in his helmet too. I can't remember. He was a very small role in the show. He stood out to me. That's all. But can you explain a little more about the parts war then?
So the parts war is pretty much like they're competitions for AT riders. Challenge each other to rank up or challenge each other to like get parts for their ATs, because ATs are kind of expensive to maintain. There's also like a special condition where if you win 3 parts wars, you'll go up in rank. But also, there's another condition where you have to either bet parts or your emblem um, to compete. And if you bet your emblem and you lose, your team has to disband.
Right.
It's
So
uh it's weird just because like when a team loses that doesn't mean they need to disband it. They only need to disband if they
if they bet the
bet
emblem,
their emblem.
yeah. Um.
And the anime doesn't do a good job at like kind of specifying that, because it almost seems like every parts where Icky's in is like the emblem is on the line,
Yeah. So this was my
like
big.
all of them.
This was my big confusion with Air Gear, because I felt like either the concept of the Trophaeum and the Parts War wasn't explained well enough, there was something I wasn't understanding, or the show just wasn't paying enough attention. Because by all those rules, why is Icky's team still E class at the end of the show? Because there was a point where he fought. So I really started noticing this because when he eventually has the fight with Rika, that oldest sister that didn't want him to ride, they do a B class parts war, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe she's B class. I don't know why, because if she was the leader of Sleeping Forest, wouldn't that mean she's A class? But whatever. And he wins it, and he's still at the same rank. And I'm like, shouldn't he be moved up a rank because he beat a higher ranked team? I don't know. Maybe this
Well,
was an official
that
match.
wasn't like an official one.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that's not an official match. But then it immediately goes into the whole Behemoth mini subplot. And it was that's a specific parts war match where people show up and are spectating, and they make it very clear that they are a D class team and Icky is an E class. And Icky's team beats this D class team in a parts war, and they still remain at E class. And
no, they go to F class. They go to F class after they beat Behemoth.
Then why does Bucha say we're still at E class after the fact?
Swore he.
No, I was keeping very careful attention to this because this was really confusing me.
Yeah, you know what? It is inconsistent because I guess in the rules of the anime, you rank up if you beat a team a higher rank than you, or you win 3 in a row. But it seems like in the anime, by like default, it's like, no, you have to win like 3 in a row.
And wasn't the team that they fought right before the whole Rika stuff, I forget what their name was, the one where they had to do the race around the school fence?
Sable Tigers was the same rank as Icky's team.
It was the same? Okay. Because I was going to say, weren't they one rank above as well? And then wasn't Booch's team a rank above Icky's when they fought at the beginning?
He was F class, I think, Booch's team. Or no, maybe he was D class, actually.
He wasn't all the way to D, but I remember he was one step above Icky.
Yeah, but don't forget, when Icky and Boocher race, it's before Icky forms his team, which we probably should say. Icky's team is called Kogarasumaru.
Yeah,
so,
they don't actually make an official team until like halfway through the show, or about that point. Icky's kind of just
about a third in.
Icky's just kind of borrowing Sleeping Forest's team emblem for a few matches to bet, which he shouldn't do. And I don't know why nobody that he's facing off against really calls him out on it, but whatever.
It is bizarre. To kind of like, we're a little all over the place, but there's Fatty Bucha, who Icky defeats. Then the next member of Kogarasumaru, well, Icky has 2 friends, Kazu and Onigiri. They, are part of the team, and Onigiri and Kazu are I like Kazu a lot, and Onigiri kind of like a weird comedy character.
I liked Onigiri way more than I thought he would, because he's designed specifically as being the unattractive fat side comedy character in any other show.
Yeah.
But you know what? just because of how over the top the show gets sometimes. He did get a lot of laughs out of me. He got a lot of laughs out of me where another character in another show of a similar kind of vibe would probably just get a bunch of eye rolls from me. And
Yeah,
I went in
Onigiri's like the
thinking he was.
pervy character, but they never they he does do a lot of pervy stuff, but like they never take it to feeling too uncomfortable with Onigiri,
No.
and maybe that's why he works a little bit better than
Honestly, he just
like some other characters like him.
he makes a lot of really silly faces that I enjoy, and he rides his
Yeah.
stupid rollerblade on top of his head. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just he makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Kazu though, I know you really like Kazu, but I don't know. I don't have anything against Kazu, but I feel like compared to every other main character, he's like the least interesting.
He gets a lot more development in the manga than the anime.
Yeah, I kind of
Because
remember
like the thing with Kazu is
that.
like he's like the only one of the
Um,
that's like kind of just like a normal kid.
yeah, he's if you were on the outside looking in, Kazu might feel more appropriate from like a character design perspective as being the main character, and Icky would be more of
Yeah.
like a rival character. Because Icky's got like the spiky hair and stuff, and he's got the forward attitude, and Kazu is just kind of like rolling with it. I don't know. I think of like
Yeah.
what, like who, like describe Kazu, and I'm like, uh, he wears a ski cap. That's
And
it.
he has a hoodie and
Yeah, I don't know. Like everybody else says all these other traits that I immediately think of, and Kazu is just kind of like the boring one. He's fast, I guess. Like the two times he uses it in a parts war battle.
yeah, he's new to the 80s too, but like the thing I like about Kazu is like him and Icky kind of have this like rivalry, but like they always end up like still being friends, unlike something like Naruto and Sasuke,
Yeah,
where like, they never like, end up I could be wrong, but like I'm pretty sure they don't end up like fighting each other like for real in the manga. Like they have like a few instances where they exchange blows, but like, they never really like they never stop being friends. And with the five members of Kogarasumaru, which I guess you could say like six members, because we got to talk about Agito and Akito, because that's a character and he's crazy and weird. And
right. Let's just finish up with
honestly,
Kazu and Onigiri first, and then
yeah,
we'll move on.
but yeah, with Kazu, like he's just like Icky's childhood friend.
Him and
He
Onigiri are both
has
their childhood
Yeah,
friends, and it's
and
interesting
the
too
thing
because at the
is
beginning of the
that's
show,
interesting about them. Oh, I'm sorry. Were
it,
you saying something?
yeah, it's interesting because at the beginning of the show, it's almost like Kazu and Onigiri are just fed up with Iggy's shit. Like Iggy is
Yeah,
like egotistical at times to a very funny degree, and Kazu and Onigiri are like, why do we have to do these ATs? Icky's the only one that wants to do them, and then they
yeah,
try to like do their own thing without Icky, and then they, you know, fail, and Icky has to rescue him, and then they're like, okay, Icky, we'll do this with you.
yeah. Yeah, they're just like Icky's friends. But for like Kazuno and Onigiri kind of being like background characters, they don't get like forgotten about, which is
No,
pretty
I
like
never forget
good.
about them. They always have a presence on screen, but I'm just from like a character design perspective, Kazu just kind of blends in, and from like a personality perspective, Kazu is just kind of there's not a lot there. I just like you said, there's more in the manga, but
Yeah.
I don't know. He's the straight man in this show of out of over the top bullshit.
Kazu gets one really good moment in the anime when he fights there's this big team called Behemoth they fight later on, and he fights this guy named Ion, which Ion later on in the show, in the manga, becomes like a pretty regular character, which is kind of weird. But
He did in the anime too. He
like
kind of became like Kogarasumaru's
yeah,
advisor.
he's like their butler. Like, but yeah, like Ion has like, the ability to like, freeze time.
Which I called
It's
bullshit
not
on.
really freezing time, but for simplicity's sake, we're gonna say he can freeze time
I
because
totally.
he knows how to ride his rollerblades a certain way.
Also, the
But
anime had no interest in explaining it either because they make all these flashbacks about how to take care of behemoth members, and when it came time to explain about Heian Clock's uh, AT's
yeah,
work, Agito is pretty much like, "Don't worry about it." It's like, but we have to know how to defeat him by understanding him. I was like, just don't worry about it. No one cares. It's fucking rollerblades. Just move on.
yeah. Yeah, he's like, if you fight Ion, you're gonna lose because he can freeze time. And then like I was just like, wait, how's that possible? Like Agito's just like it doesn't matter. But anyway, like Kazu sort of figures out his trick. He still loses to Ion, but he makes Ion so mad that like he like says to Kazu like, I'm gonna make sure like when I defeat you, you're not gonna be able to lift one finger.
Yeah.
And like as Ion defeats Kazu, he like gives him the middle finger.
That is the
And like the match ends with Kazu like passed out on the ground but giving him the finger, and it's pretty cool.
That is one of the few things I remembered about the Erigir anime. Because I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a scene I played in my head a lot of times whenever I'm looking at similar fights in different shows. And it is such a punk way to lose a match. And I love it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that's Kazu's good moment in the show. And we got to talk about Agito because
all right, let's talk about
Agito is
Agito.
very, very unique to Erigir because he has a split personality. He's got his nice half and his like psychotic half. The first time they introduce Agito is he's in a parts war with this team called the Bulls, and
Well, no,
actually, his evil.
Agito was actually teased a number of times before his official introduction
That's
into
true.
the show.
He briefly gets like a few moments where like he's kind of like
he shows up in the first
episode.
He shows up in the first episode. Ikki goes by this shop of parts fairly regularly at the beginning, and Agito runs into them there and gives them some smack talk. And it's not until I think it was like episode 8 or so until he officially came in as a central character to that episode's story.
Yeah, and like the deal with Agito is he has this split personality. One side is nice, the other side is like psychotic. He's the fun, crazy character, and then like the like nice gay boy character at the same time, which is like a very unique like dynamic. But he's also connected to like the police because
please explain this because this is also something I didn't understand.
It's very weird because it's almost like air tricks are illegal but like not illegal.
Yeah, that I was confused so much because it made it seem like only people that ride air tricks are involved in this shady underground Fight Club-esque community. But then the way Ringo describes it and how the teachers at school scold them for using it in school, it just kind of feels like everybody can kind of use it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was always wondering, what are these police trying to do? There's like a police of people that use ATs to arrest other people abusing ATs, I guess, but the leader of the police...
like the Finjuku G-Men, and they're part of the police's use of reckless aviation task force or something.
And that's kind of where Agito comes from, because Agito is their attack dog. He's the brother of the leader, or I guess a central figure in this faction, and then he eventually breaks away to join.
In charge of the G-Men.
Ikki waxes poetic to Agito about flying free and breaking from the well he's trapped in, and that's when Agito's other half decides that instead of wanting to fuck up Ikki in a parts war, he wants to just climb into his bed and fuck him instead.
Yeah, his whole story is like really bizarre because I don't know, like it's like he was like trained to like hunt down people riding ATs. Once again, it's very like weird if like if ATs are illegal or if it's just like it's illegal to have these like parts wars, because I guess they do a lot of like collateral damage, these parts wars.
But the
I
parts
mean,
wars are
especially the
also
one with,
they're also advertised online on like an official forum too. You'd think
yeah.
it would be they just go and be done with the whole thing if the police could find them as easily as any middle schooler could.
Well, let's not forget when Air Gear was made, kind of like made around the time where like, the internet is this like thing that's for like young people, and like people in authority don't really understand how to use it and stuff.
No, I would argue the police would understand how to use it.
Yeah,
Or at least
yeah.
what if
I mean,
these people
especially
claiming
since
to be
like,
police.
their commander is young.
Yeah, I mean, is Kaito's his brother's name, right?
Yes.
Is he the leader, or is he just like a central figure in this?
No, he's
Because
the
he walks
leader.
because he walks around like a runway model, and I'm wondering where his uniform is.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I could be wrong, but you know how they have the flashback to the original Sleeping Forest in the anime,
Yeah.
and you know how like they show that like hooded figure attacking everybody.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's Kaido,
Oh. Okay.
but I don't remember. But I think that's him.
Okay.
And he's like connected to the past, and I guess like one of his like, I guess he's sort of like the Judas to like the whole like Sleeping Forest, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh wow.
It has been a long time since I've read the entire manga, so I could be wrong, but I think that's the deal with him.
That sounds interesting, and it kind of just leaves me disappointed that this is unfortunately around this time and before the time this was made. A lot of these one season shows that were based off of much longer mangas unfortunately just had to get really edited down and left a lot of content out from their original source material. Because
Yeah.
I do remember the entire world being expanded a lot more when I borrowed the manga for you as you were collecting them.
Yeah.
But all I can really go by right now, for what I have access to, is the anime, and it is what we're mostly talking about. But we can't help but compare things to the manga as well, because it just kind of comes with the territory.
Just to make note, there is like a larger world of Air Gear. The anime more or less adapts like the first like third of like the entire manga run, and it's weird because when it was made, it was right before like the seasonal anime thing started happening. This is still like the old school aspect ratio with the 4:3, so this is not 16:9. Although I will say, for 4:3 on regular DVD, I don't know how your DVDs were, but like my Funimation release, they're really good quality DVDs. The show being on a DVD format, I mean, it looked great still on my TV.
No, mine did too. I watched it on 2 TVs as well. I watched most of them out in my living room, and then the last one I watched in my room because it was late at night.
Yeah.
And both of them looked, great. I mean, I've never really been one to get all hung up about. I don't even know how you would want to describe it. The 720p's and the 1080i's and whatever.
You're not an audio visual snob like I can be sometimes.
Yeah, like,
but
I still remember when you first got your first HD TV and you plugged the PS3 in there, and I couldn't really tell the difference, and it wasn't until like years later that I could finally tell the difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the releases still look nice if you're watching them on DVD.
It
Or
is. It is
you can
also
watch it on
available.
Funimation now.
Yeah, it is also available on Funimation Now and Hulu in case you're interested in checking out for yourself, which I do recommend. If you are into shonen anime like this, despite like my problems I had with um, the sections we talked about, I thought it was a lot of fun still. But anyway, so
There's a
Agito
lot
and
in the show. Like it adapts 12 volumes of manga, which is like a lot.
yeah, and I don't really remember much about Tenjo Tenge from when you let me borrow it. I know I didn't like it nearly as much as I liked Air Gear, and I also remember Tenjo Tenge just kind of not forming a complete package of an anime as well as Air Gear did.
Tenjo Tenge is a weird beast of a show. Not to go into like Tenjo Tenge and like why like it's weird and I don't like it nearly as much as I once liked it, but like it is this author O Great's previous work, and Tenjo Tenge starts off kind of similar to Air Gear with like the way he writes his characters. I don't know, like he's very good at making like young characters comedic and sort of like unique and like interesting, but like Tenjo Tenge, most of the anime is like a flashback, and like the actual characters you
Mm-hmm.
care about are barely in the show.
That's what I was frustrated with because I remember halfway
Yeah,
through we just start getting a huge flashback that lasted almost the entire second half of the show, and I'm wondering what is this leading up to, and then I guess it never led up to anything. At least I don't remember
yeah,
what it did.
it's a very like weird thing to like introduce like these like fun like cool characters and then immediately be like, hey, like this one character like Maya Natsumi, yeah, so we're gonna like go into her past for like most of the show.
Yeah, with Air Gear, a lot of these questions I had still were never really explained or answered, but the last few episodes do frame up really nicely just for a good ending. I feel
Yeah,
like at the very least it gave me a feel good feeling inside watching the end, with the exception of it suddenly cutting to credits with no music or anything like that. But
yeah, it's weird too because like it is very obvious as you continue watching Air Gear, there's like more, and the hopes of like a season 2 coming out are pretty slim. Air Gear was made by Toei Animation and Marvelous Entertainment. I don't know exactly like if any other like studio or anything would want to take a chance on it, because I did a little bit of background, and in Japan the manga was pretty popular. It even won like an award in 2008, and that's probably. But like I think the anime was made right around the same time the manga like won this award. Um, but like the show like just did not click with people when it aired in Japan. Like there are a lot of people that love the show like I do, and but at the end of the day, it's like it's not really a marketable show. Um, for like
it's just a fun
and I don't
experience
even
to watch over the course of a week, and then maybe you can go on with your life or rest of your TV viewing habits. It's a fun
yeah
time, but like I guess when you didn't have the rest of the stuff that you could incorporate into it because you only had 26 episodes to work with, you kind of got as much mileage out of it as you could have.
it's almost like a miracle it got an anime,
Um,
but
but before
it did
we,
not do well in Japan.
I'm really
Some of the
surprised to
reviews were
hear
like
that because
it's like really corny and like doesn't make sense.
well, can we talk about the corniness for a minute because I like the corniness.
I
Like
like it too.
I've
It's
got
amazing.
I've got a soft spot for characters like Icky trying to convince other people not to let their own limitations set them down and to aim for the sky and to spread your wings. And I don't know, like, I found it all very, very inspiring. Like, I love when Goku does stuff like this, when he's just like this guy that's always looking ahead and up and forward. And like, that's one of the reasons why I like Sonic so much still to this day as well. And it came out at a good time, or it didn't come out, but I watched it at a good time like that because, like I mentioned, you got me into the show around the time when I graduated community college, and community college was kind of a series of unsuccessful attempts to find a direction for my life to go into. So, I think one of the reasons why I still held Air Gear with such sentimentality is because, Icky, when he's not being ridiculous and egotistical, he is kind of just encouraging you to just, don't beat yourself up, to keep going, keep striving for your dreams. And I don't know if this was like intentional or anything, but that's kind of what I felt like the whole Sky Road was doing, and why everybody was trying to look to Icky as a leader to lead them to like something else. I kind of all took it as like a big metaphor of just trying Icky being the one to, teach them all just to follow your own dreams. Because that's I guess that's like one of the messages. Just at the end of the day, is just to follow your dreams. Hey, do you want to be the best damn motor rollerblader you could possibly be? Then fucking do it.
Yeah.
Don't let the class structure of the Trophaeum or the Parts War get you down. Just get up and do it. And if you get knocked down, get up and try to do it again. That's one of the things I liked about Agito, because Agito, I liked Agito a lot when I first watched the show. Not as much now. He was kind of annoying at times for me, but I did still like him. But when Icky was telling him you're like a frog trapped at the bottom of the well, it reminded me of how I was in community college, and I was just frustrated all the time with how things weren't working out for me, how things with my friends from high school didn't work out, how things academically weren't going well for me. I just graduated community college and I had no idea what I wanted to transfer to, let alone which major to finally settle on. And when Icky's describing Agito as being this like little angry frog trapped at the bottom of the well, always looking up at the sky, it just, I don't know, that I felt very inspiring for him to break out. It's not like it's a brand new metaphor or everything, birds flying free and breaking out of their cages is overdone as any other trope, but I think it works well here.
I mean, it's a good show with like, positive messages, and I guess like that's the best part is like, it has that whole like, just do what you want, like, and even later on with like, all like the melodrama and everything that happens, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, oh, like, yeah, I don't give a shit about like the way I'm supposed to do it. I'm gonna like do it my way.
Yeah, and that's something that really resonated well with me back then too. Do you want to talk about like Ringo and her sisters? Because we haven't really talked about other characters outside of Kogarasumaru.
Yeah, Ringo. Ringo is interesting because she's like Icky's like I guess like she's sort of like Icky's sister, but like also like his childhood like best friend.
See, I never thought of Icky as like an official brother to them. They do this a few times, but I always thought it was like pretty. They made it pretty clear that the guy that brought Icky to their family just kind of dropped him off at their house. It's like, here. And I thought it was weird too because like Ringo and her sisters are also orphans, and the oldest sister was like, how old was she? Like 12 at the time. She brought baby Icky there, and I'm like, why are you leaving this baby with these orphan children that are already living on their own? Why don't they all just live with you? Who are you, uncle?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Like the oldest sister's like, their ages are like so young in the show. and the way all the characters look, I mean, like this show, like most animes, let's call it like the Hey Arnold syndrome, where like
What?
uh older characters look like straight up adults, and then you find out like, oh, they're 16 or like
Oh,
13 or
yeah.
something.
Yeah, like Icky and Ringo are in middle school. They're 13, but like every character in the show, except for Onigiri, is drawn to look like I guess they're like older teens. They're like everybody's really tall, I noticed. Like
Yeah,
no one's really short. The only short character I can think of is Ringo's one sister, Ume, and that's because she's like 10.
yeah, and like Ume being as young as she is, it's like kind of like it almost doesn't make sense in the show because it's like, wait, so like Icky was like dropped off as a baby and then they were orphans, but like somehow Ume exists
Oh
and
my
she's younger
god,
than Icky.
I never thought about that. Yeah, where did
Yeah,
Ume
like
come
that's one
from?
problem I've always had with that. Like I was like, wait,
I
it's like
never.
Ume
Oh my
like
god, I never noticed
another
that.
person. Like she does look different than everybody else, like out of the sisters. But
Does the
yeah,
manga go into their parents anymore? Like what that situation, or is
I
this
don't
just
remember.
like a
Um,
situation where it's just like, for the convenience of the plot, for the convenience of we're gonna literally break out of our house at 2 a.m. to go fight in underground rollerblade matches, we're just not gonna have parents involved, and they're all just kind of living
yeah,
here, and we have a convenient older sister that rakes in a bunch of money so they can all live here without having jobs. I think that's
yeah,
maybe like more of the reason than anything else, and I shouldn't be thinking so hard about it.
yeah. It's not really the point, and honestly, like the I can really remember without, reading the manga in a long time is I do know the manga goes into more detail with like, Rika and Sora's past. But yeah, it's weird because like Ringo is the same age as Icky, yet she has this like secret of like being like the like successor to Sleeping Forest, which is like the greatest rollerblading team ever, and she's like at one point she says like I can't tell you about what happened 10 years ago, and I'm like, wait, 10 years ago when you were 4 years old?
Well,
Like
I thought that was more because she knows what happened with Rika and Sora.
yeah,
Like,
I
not
guess so.
necessarily that she was there herself, but yeah, it is kind of weird. You do have to kind of suspend your disbelief because to add to like some of the drama, people are always like back then, but it was like 2 years ago. But at the same
Yeah,
time, I also
it's
remember
funny.
being a teenager and thinking like, oh, back then things were different, and it was like last year, and I'm like, all right, dude, chill out.
Yeah, it's weird too because like with Ringo, it's like she's like the leader of the Sleeping Force and kind of doesn't even really want to be the leader.
Yeah,
Like she even says at like one
yeah,
point, like I would rather be riding with like Icky and his friends than like
and
having this role as like leader of Sleeping
and
Forest.
that's one of my favorite things about Ringo. She participates in these parts wars. She participates in the Trophaeum stuff, but her heart's not in it. She just wants to fucking ride rollerblades and not have some kind of dramatic tension story attached to it.
Yeah, she doesn't want to like deal with like mythology, like which I'm just gonna refer to the rollerblading powers as magic because that's what it is. and,
Yeah,
and she's just like, yeah, this world of like rollerblades and magic. She's just like, I just want to do rollerblade stuff. I don't
yeah,
care about like these like magic regalias that
yeah.
we have to battle each other for the fate of the world at one point, if I remember
Oh no!
correctly, or
See,
at least
I was
Japan.
gonna ask. Like, there is no fate of the world crap in the show, but is there fate of the world crap in the manga?
um I can only like sort of like remember some things, but like things do escalate pretty like
No,
far.
oh no.
I don't know if it's fate of the world, but it's like at least like Japan.
Oh, jeez.
It's very weird, man. Like honestly, like if you really wanted to, like, I could, get through the manga. We could do another like follow up video to like Air Gear manga, and
I
it's like
wouldn't rule
weird
it out. I
differences.
was thinking about finally signing up for some kind of like digital manga service, but I don't know. Like for right now, I just wanted to concentrate on getting through these anime. But
Yeah, so just like just to leave the manga as its own thing, but yeah, Ringo as the successor to Sleeping Forest. The anime alludes to like, yeah, this is like kind of important, but it never really goes into too much detail about exactly what the deal is with the Sleeping Forest, except for like it was like the team that brought all the like kings together. So it was like the team that had all the people with magic powers, and they were stopped. And just to like briefly touch on it, like the older sister doesn't, because
hey,
her
can you repeat that?
ex-boyfriend.
You just kind of dropped out for a sec. Can you just repeat what you
Oh,
said?
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I don't know when I dropped out, but
You're saying
I guess.
older sister was doing something.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, to just finish my thought here, you find out about the Sleeping Forest. They were like the best team ever. The older sister Rika was part of it. The reason why Rika doesn't want Icky to ride ATs is because Icky is a lot like her ex-boyfriend, who you do meet in the show, named Sora, who is now in a wheelchair because he, busted his ass riding ATs, but it almost seems like he didn't bust his ass riding ATs. Somebody attacked him and like shit went wrong, and now he can't walk. And
It
Reek
just
is afraid that like, Icky's like so reckless, he's gonna like, either mess up or piss somebody off so much that like they're gonna like break his legs, like what happened to her ex-boyfriend Sora. And
and no
that's
one in
kind
this
of her
show
deal.
and no one in this show about extreme motorized rollerblading wears helmets or pads or anything. By the way, so of
Some
course
of the
he's
bad guy
gonna,
teams do.
of
The Red
course.
Boa Dogs and the Bulls wear helmets.
Oh, those are more style than function, though. Like Kogarasumaru is not wearing any helmets while they're riding up the school walls or having these battle royale tournaments in an underground sewer concrete plant.
Yeah, it does briefly say actually in the like show that like they do have helmets, because like when they're getting all the supplies to make their team, there is like a brief like thing where it's just like, hey, I found somebody that would give us helmets, but like they never wear them.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. It's very briefly like mentioned that like they have helmets, they just choose not to wear them.
So, something
They've
else.
got their like cool little outfits.
Something else I wanted to talk about. And I'm
Okay.
surprised we went this long without talking about her. Was Simca and her
Yes.
intentions and Genesis and what exactly the hell happened with all of that.
Simka is a unique character because, at least anime wise, she kind of more or less a complete mystery for the whole entire show. You don't know exactly what her intentions are beyond that, like, she likes Icky, or at least is like possibly using Icky for, you know, a means to something, but we really don't know exactly what her intentions are beyond that. Like, she likes Icky because Icky's able to like see the wing road, and she wants, as the show goes on, Simca and Ringo have like some sort of history. It's a little bit more clear in the manga, I guess, because in the manga, Simca and Mikan, which is Ringo's other sister, that really doesn't get any play in the anime,
No,
but in the manga,
she
she's
really
a
doesn't. That's
lot.
probably why we haven't
Yeah,
mentioned her at all.
she's a lot more important in the manga. At least, like, has a cover, and she's one of like Simca is one of Mikan's friends, at least at the beginning of the series, and they briefly show that.
Yeah,
But
they're playing video
you know,
games together.
yeah, and as far as we know, it's like Simca's like this super hot girl that like interested in Icky for some reason. You don't know why. Ringo may know why, but like it's kind of unclear. And
Simca, I felt like had some kind of rivalry with Ringo, either based on Ringo's status in Sleeping Forest or because of her interest in Icky. It's kind of portrayed as like a dual kind of rivalry in that way. But yeah, in the
yeah,
beginning, like Icky first wants to start riding ATs because he wants to fuck Simca. Because he sees
I
Simca
mean,
riding
yeah,
around and he's like, oh
he
man, I
watches
gotta get
her
some of
like
that.
practice, and like it's like she's like super hot,
And
and
then and then
he's like, oh,
Icky,
if I ride rollerblades, I can maybe like go out with this really hot girl. Like,
yeah, because Simca's a femme fatale. She wears this very low cut dress and she has like this I don't want to call it like a military hat, but it kind of feels like some kind of like officer hat with goggles on it, and
yeah,
her nickname is Simca the Swallow, which I don't know if that was an intentional innuendo, but I took it as one. And then when Icky starts doing good, Simca's like, man, these clothes are so hot. I'm just gonna hang out in this underage boy's bed until he comes home without my clothes on. And then Icky makes the most amazing face I've seen in the entire show. And yeah, she's like the sole reason the show is rated MA, because it really is a TV-14 show, except for the few bare tits that are mostly because of Simca. But then,
yeah,
like, all of this kind of Simca stuff just flushes away after they beat Behemoth, and Simca gets super melancholy, and she goes to Spitfire's hair salon, which I love that they gave Spitfire some kind of like real world position, and she cuts her iconic long hair really really short, and then she shows up to Icky's house with like 200 storm riders waving flags for the team Genesis that is just introduced with the sole purpose of bringing down Sleeping Forest. And but
yeah.
no reasons are ever given. I don't understand what Sleeping Forest being on top means for the world of the Storm Riders, and I don't understand why Genesis wants to destroy them other than to bring down the Trophaeum, which, again, I
Yeah,
still don't even have a clear concept of. I don't even understand if the Trophaeum is supposed to be a physical place, because they always show this tower whenever they talk about it. I think they're talking figuratively, but I don't freaking know. The 8 roads leading up to
it's
it, but every character has their own roads, so it's like clearly there's more than just 8 roads. Even the last
yeah.
guy says, there's more. There can definitely be more than 8 kings. It's just that only 8 kings have been around at the same time to find the road up. Blah blah blah. I don't know, but Simca really starts off as like a big, like, fan servicey comedy role, and then just feels more mysterious as the show goes on, and then just kind of feels like she just sheds all of that to become like a cult leader, and it just
Kind
never
of.
it's didn't really sit well with me.
Yeah, it's odd. You know, it just taking like the way Simca is in the anime, like the whole like Genesis team where she makes this giant team, like Gabe said, and they want Icky to be the leader. And it's kind of like weird because like goal, I guess, is to get rid of like the sleeping forest of the Trophaeum, and it's kind of unclear on like why they want to break this system down. Um, and it does become like a pretty big focus of the manga later on for sure. You know, and that's like a whole other can of worms, but it's weird that it's like introduced in the anime because it is pretty much like set up for like the next part of Air Gear and like how things escalate.
Yeah, and it never
Simca's
really.
deal too is like, of course, like connected to the past of like Sleeping Forest, and they briefly mentioned this team that's pretty important called Tool Tora, and Simca's history is connected to this team, and Simca is very connected to like the regalia and like Sora and everything. But you don't really find that out ever in the anime. You don't even get a hint of that in the anime, where it's just like, oh, like Simca's connected to the original Sleeping Forest, and like Sora, like in like especially yeah, and the whole thing with like Genesis is kind of like weird. Um, the way Genesis plays out in the manga is kind of different. Um, but like I said, it has been a long time since I've read through it. Just to it's like the whole other part here all day if I explained what happened in the next part. But
That's fine. Like I said, we're mostly
yeah,
just focusing on the anime for this video. Um,
yeah, Simca is like this cool, like mysterious hot girl that is in Air Gear, and she definitely knows something, and
yeah,
she has a goal, but you're not really ever tuned into her goal. And she has enough influence to get like a bunch of people to like follow her, like Spitfire and New, who like is
oh
like
man,
the other king
no,
character that is briefly in the show.
yeah. Like I wanted to say, Simca almost feels completely unnecessary in the show for as little as she brings, but because she's so entertaining at the beginning as this kind of wild card, I let it pass. But and nothing against these next two, but Spitfire and especially New honestly feel like they didn't even have to be in the show at all for as little of a purpose as they played. Like
Yeah,
New
I mean,
shows up.
I definitely think
Spitfire
Spitfire
Spitfire shows
is
up very early.
interesting.
Yeah, he shows up very early and makes like little. He and Simca are kind of like the sideline commentators for some of the matches, but New just shows
Yeah,
up so late that I have to wonder what's even the point. He basically
yeah,
does the same thing. He's just sitting on the sidelines with Simca and Spitfire and making comments about how Icky's doing. I don't know.
New shows up. It's just like, hey, Spitfire does fire and he does like electricity. Also, he has like crazy Kingdom Hearts armor for some reason. We're gonna show it, but we're not gonna explain what the deal is with
And it was in
it.
one scene, and that's it. And I don't even know if scene is the proper term because it's there for one shot and then disappears in the next shot. And in my notes for watching this, um, yeah, LOL, news armor is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't know why it was
it,
there. He kind of shows up in it, and then the next shot he's in the same scene. He's just not wearing it. And I'm like, okay,
and
you know what?
yeah, the finale.
When his
New,
rollerblades
like,
are shooting off electricity, I'm not gonna ask.
I like up a little bit, like in the finale. We're introduced to another king level character named Shizune. He has like this regalia called the Rumble Regalia. You
I was
briefly see it
wondering
in
if he
action.
was. I was confused if he was a king or not. And I think Aeon Clock did say he was, but
Yeah,
I
because
don't
he has a
know.
regalia, so he is a king.
Okay. So
If you have a regalia, you're a
does
king.
that mean Agito is a king? Because I wondered about that too.
Yeah, I guess it does. Because if we're going on like the anime logic, it's like yeah, Agi had Fang regalia that Kira, who is the leader of Behemoth that we mentioned, and he was a king. I guess like the big thing is right now, there are different kings, but the kings are not all united under Sleeping Forest anymore. But they once were, and that's kind of like the deal with Sleeping Forest being a legend, where like a lot of people don't think Sleeping Forest still exists because all the kings have their own teams, but like the original version of the Sleeping Forest is all the kings riding together.
Right. All right. Do you want to talk about the ending?
Yeah, let's briefly talk about the ending. I'm gonna actually have to wrap up pretty soon, though, just to let you know.
Yeah, I was thinking we're kind of. I've talked, except for the music, which I guess we'll save for the end. Um,
Yeah,
let's just get to the ending then, since we kind of talked about most
yeah,
of the other aspects of the show.
yeah. So the ending ends with like another unique parts where Icky has to like do like this like jump over like a bunch of people, and he has to like jump over all these people. It's called like the something
The
32
devil's 30-30, and he has to jump over 30.
30.
He's got to
Yeah.
jump over 33 people lying down next to each other. And the guy, I keep forgetting his name, even though I think he's kind of funny, is like, yeah, you better be careful because one wrong move and you're gonna crush their skulls in.
Oh yeah, the Shizune guy, and they're Triton, which is like a team of like three members, and one of the members is actually like a computer that has like a forum
Yeah,
that has a bunch of people like posting under like one name.
yeah. So like all of their members are basically the Third King as a collective.
Yeah, and the way it ends is pretty interesting because this Devil's 3030 is very different than the manga, but like it pretty much like all the people like throughout the anime kind of show up for like Icky to jump over them at the end, and like that's probably why the ending of the anime works. Because like Icky, ends up like getting into a situation where he tries to cheat to do the jump at first, and like Shizune is able to stop him. And
I've remembered it as I was watching it, and I laughed so hard because I don't know why I thought it was so funny, but like he makes this big dramatic speech about like if you're gonna cheat and destroy our tradition, then you can just get out of here. And Nikki makes a genuine apology, and then the guy, after being all serious, just turns around and is like, "Oh, okay. Well, as long as you're sorry and understand, you can try as many times as you want."
yeah, so Icky tries, and like all the people throughout the show up, and there's like a huge crowd of people, and the last episode's framed with this like flashback of like Icky as a kid
I
climbing
loved
Tokyo
I
Tower.
love the flashback because it reminds you of what Icky's all about.
Yeah, and at the end of the show, he does do the jump, and like he says, to Ringo, like I told you I could fly, and that's how the show ends, and it's a pretty good ending. Although like there's a lot of stuff up in the air, like what's the deal with Genesis? What's the deal with the Kings? What's the deal with Sleeping Forest?
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, this anime was in the old way of like this anime is so you'll buy the manga.
yeah. I really there's a lot of things I really like about Ringo, and one of my favorite scenes with her was when everybody's arguing about who's gonna go and lie down at the farthest end of the people. She just goes and does it on her own, just because of her like unwavering faith in Nikki. And I thought that really got to me. I really enjoyed that, and the show does a really good job of kind of remixing a bunch of the melodies from the intro song and weaving them into like an inspiring section of music during this entire thing. And
Yeah,
when everyone just from the show just starts showing up again to support Icky, it's like I don't mind so much that all of these loose ends are left loose because, like I was mentioning before, the last few episodes really do kind of frame the show to have an ending, and it's an ending I like. It's like I would have liked if more of this stuff was developed, but for someone
yeah,
that was losing interest once the Rika and Behemoth stuff started happening, it picked it back up for me again, and I wasn't expecting it to, and I really liked it that it did that. And it just, with the exception of it just cutting to credits against a black background, like there was no ending song or visuals like there normally was. It felt very abrupt and weird. But like other than that, I really liked the ending a lot for what it was.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's great. Just some of the final thoughts on the show. It's overall a really good show. It's a very unique show. It's a show that not too many people know about, but like most people that I've shown the show to tend to really like it, and the show really kind of it doesn't have like, the biggest animation budget, but like for whatever reason, they got like really good people to do the music. And that's one thing
Oh
that
my,
the
yeah.
show really shines at is
The
like it's got this
everything
kick-ass like hip hop techno soundtrack that is just amazing.
everything that I've read about Air Gear leading up to this, um, everyone seems to universally agree the music is the best part of the show, and I agree.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of really good, upbeat, fun, dancey tracks to this. Like, when I don't have all the track list names in front of me right now, but, like, especially a lot of the ones in the first half of the series, when they're all riding ATs, and like when he's coming from the brink of defeat and just a really good track starts playing to kind of emphasize that comeback.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. I really wish I could describe music more. The only thing I could say is just it's great. I love it. It's a few different people worked on it, but the one I know specifically is Skank Funk, and I just found out recently looking him up. He's also worked on a lot of Sega games too. A lot of people kind of make a comparison between Air Gear and Jet Set Radio by Sega, which is a game about people rollerblading. And I found out Skank Funk worked on the Jet Set Radio soundtrack, and I thought that was pretty cool. I think he also worked on Sonic Rush as well, and I can't really remember Sonic Rush's soundtrack very well, but I do know a lot of people really like Sonic Rush's music.
Sonic Rush has that back-to-back song. That's the only song I remember from Sonic Rush. It was like back-to-back.
I don't know. Like, I need to revisit Sonic Rush. It's been a very long time since I played that game, and...
Yeah, come on, Sega, release a Dibs Sonic handheld collection, please. Give me Sonic Advance 1, 2, and 3, Sonic Rush, Sonic Colors, like, do it. But anyway, yeah.
But the music is wonderful. It's definitely a great soundtrack. Great. If nothing else,
there's a lot of music too, which is interesting. It's not like some shows like you'll notice like they play a lot of songs like over and over again, and this show does that, but like each version kind of has like a twist to it. But then there's also just like a lot of unique songs that like you're like, oh wow, like certain characters have their own themes, and like certain situations have their own themes. There's a lot to it.
I recognize Kazu's theme, and I recognize Agito's theme, and the Police's theme for sure.
Yeah.
But
there's like the Regalia theme. There's like the opposing team theme that they play.
And it's not on the soundtrack that you let me borrow and make a copy of, but like I was mentioning, they do a lot of really good variations of the opening and the ending themes. And the ending theme is really good too. I said the opening was one of my favorites, but the ending is really great as well. It's got a nice... I do like the song, but what strikes me the best about it is because it's kind of shot to mimic somebody rollerblading in real life in first person, and it has a lot of really cool Japanese urban environments to it. That was another thing I was thinking about while I was watching that at the time. Because around the time I got into Air Gear, I also got into Mirror's Edge. Usually I don't really like the urban kind of setting very much. I'm not like really a city person, but whenever it's involved in anime for some reason, or I guess some video games too, I don't know. It's just it's more appealing to me for some reason. And I don't know if there's like a subtle difference in the way cities are designed that might have something to do with it, but when I watch the intro and the ending and just see them going around and the different patterns of the crosswalks and everything like that, it's just, I don't know. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Like, the music, everything's great. Like, I don't know what else I can say. Like, besides for getting more into like manga spoilers, but that should be another video for another time. But
they have a teacher.
It's a good show. Go check it out.
They have a teacher that is convinced that every student in the classroom wants to have sex with her, and she may or may not want that as well. I'm not sure.
A lot of unique background characters, like Miss Tomo or whatever her name is. Yeah, and she does not get forgotten about. Like she's in quite a bit of the show, even towards like the end. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, but that's Aragir. I if I had to, I would give it a good solid B. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, solid
definitely
show.
worth watching. It's a lot of fun. Wouldn't recommend it to people that don't like anime. That's another thing I'm kind of hoping to find out in this little project of mine of which anime shows could you
Yeah,
recommend to
it's a
somebody
hard show to recommend.
either trying to get into anime or just doesn't technically like
Yeah,
anime in general. But this is definitely more for anime fans. But it's still, that being said, if you made it this far into the video, you probably are. So definitely go check it out. It is on Hulu. You said it's on Funimation now as well.
yeah,
I don't know where else it is, but those are two places you can look.
pretty easy to
But
find, and
yeah, I did have a blast
it's a
going
fun
back to it.
watch.
Yeah, it was a show I was worried about starting this little project off with, but I thought it was actually, it ended up being really good because there were a lot of things I really liked and a lot of things that left me really confused and wanting more. So
Yeah,
I think that left a good amount of
so
stuff to talk about. But anyway, we haven't decided what show we're going to watch next, but hopefully it'll be fairly soon, and we'll come back with another podcast video type of conversation to talk about it. So thanks everybody
and
for
as
watching.
this goes on, maybe we'll become more focused because I'm afraid how rambly this might be. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all fine. Maybe it's fine. Well,
Right.
I'll see everybody later. Bye bye.